Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, draft lottery results that actually didn't involve the Timberwolves, plus a quick playoff update, draft power rankings based on where everybody's draft picks are. Where do the Wolves rank with 4 picks in this upcoming year's draft? And then also an additional front office rumor for the Timberwolves. What's the new ownership group going to do related to Sachin Gupta and the Timberwolves front office? Who will be running the show when it comes to the fall? Lots to talk about today. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy hump day. And happy day after the draft lottery that doesn't involve the Timberwolves, which is a really weird thing that no Wolves fan is used to, frankly. We're going to talk about that plus lots of other stuff on the show today. Thanks for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, Locked On Wolves is free and available everywhere, including YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Odyssey. You can also follow on Twitter at Locked On T Wolves and at Beecken with 2 B's, 2 E's, CKEN. All right. Packed show today. Draft lottery, draft power rankings based on the Tankathon rankings, which teams have the most picks and therefore the most draft capital in this upcoming year's draft. Playoff update. Patrick Beverley is doing his thing on TV. And then I want to talk about front office and ownership talk. There's a couple of rumors out there related to what the Wolves could do if it's not Sachin Gupta who's running this front office at any given point this summer, but potentially I guess it would have to be the summer, right? It has to be soon. The Wolves are going to make a move. Is that possible? Who might they chase? Who could they chase? Or is it just? I mean, should Gupta just run the show? I mean, I think it's a really strange kind of place the Wolves find themselves given their aggressive new ownership group. We'll get to that here in a little bit. First, quick draft lottery update. So the Wolves, of course, have been in I don't know, probably 18 of the last 20 draft lotteries, 17 of the last 19 draft lotteries. Of course, they weren't involved this year. They were locked into the 19th pick. And there was a bit of movement in the draft lottery this year. So the Orlando Magic, of course, ended up with the number 1 pick. They were one of the 3 teams, along with Houston and Detroit, that had an equal 14% chance to get the first pick. The Pistons were the big losers among that group, sliding all the way to 15th, or excuse me, 15th. 15th would be out of the lottery, which would be a really dramatic and also impossible conclusion from the draft lottery. The Pistons slid to 5th, which was they had a 14.8% chance to land the 5th pick. So they had their second best chance to slide that far. Their best chance was to slide to 6th. But still, when you have a 14% chance to pick first, 13.4 to pick second, you slide to 5th. Certainly disappointing. The Thunder held on to the 2nd spot, which was a bit of a jump up for them. Their best odds were down at 6th. The Pacers were 6th. The Kings actually leapt above the Pacers. The Kings were the big winners. They had just an 8.5% chance to pick 4th. They had roughly like a 30% chance to jump into the top 4. They did just that. They had a greater than 55 or 60-ish% chance to pick somewhere between 7th and 10th. And they jumped all the way to 4th. So you have the Pistons jumping to 5th, the Kings jumping to 4th. Those are the big winners. Everybody else from below the Kings, or I should say actually below Portland at 7. So 8 through 14 went as planned. So I mean, the teams that should be most disappointed with where they landed, probably the Pacers, which, wasn't a big surprise to them to stay at 6, but certainly the Pistons, and then the Thunder and the Kings were big winners. Of course, we'll hear lots of rumors about, what happens this in this draft. We're going to have this big debate again about who the number 1 pick is. Is it Jabari Smith? Is it Chet Holmgren? Is it possible that Minnesota natives Jalen Suggs and Chet Holmgren play together in Orlando, which would be something? Of course, both played at Gonzaga as well. And there are plenty of mock drafts out there in earnest now, now that the lottery is completed, that involve the Timberwolves, of course, at 19 with their pick. We are going to shift into draft coverage. And we're going to do that here probably at the end of the week. But then the next several weeks are going to be mostly focused on the draft. Various mock drafts who I'll go through prospects who should be on the board at 19, who I think the Wolves should look at. Then eventually we'll look at some second round prospects as well, because the Wolves do have 3 second round picks in this year's draft. In fact, despite not having a lottery pick, the Wolves are number 14. According to tankathon.com, they're 14th in draft capital in terms of draft power rankings. So, I mean, still, 14 isn't outstanding, but it's in the top half of the league, and ahead of some teams that have better first round picks than them, because the Wolves have 3 second round picks. Minnesota's got 19. They've got the 40th pick, the 48th pick, and the 50th pick. So they actually rank ahead of, like, say, the Hawks have the 16th pick of the draft. But the Timberwolves have extra second round picks. So they're a couple slots ahead of the Hawks in draft power rankings. And draft capital, I mean, they have some this year. It's unusual. The Wolves have typically been shorthanded when it comes to the draft in recent years. And they don't have many future picks to their name either. They do have all of their first round picks in the future, including this year, of course. So they have a significant amount of draft capital to shift around. As I've talked about on the show before, I just don't think that the Wolves have the right salaries to make any major trades this offseason. But the draft capital could allow them to do something, right? And also, depending on the Wolves' thought of Leandro Bolmaro, or even guys like Jalen Noel, and Bolmaro is probably a better example, they could look at somebody like him as, hey, he's essentially our first round pick this year. If they like him, if they feel like he made progress, his jumpers continue to improve, and you can trade that pick for somebody who could help your rotation and shed some salary in other areas, then perhaps the Wolves end up trading that pick for a veteran type player. Remember the year, this wouldn't be the trade, obviously, but remember that year under Adelman when the Timberwolves had like 16th, I think it was, and they traded it straight up for Chase Budinger the week of the draft, which if Budinger hadn't gotten hurt, that team was a team that needed, a top 7, top 8 rotation guy. Budinger in his prime, could defend, was athletic, could guard multiple positions. The 16th pick is not quite literally, but it's a lottery ticket, right? Draft picks are essentially a lottery ticket as you get lower into the draft. And if you're an established team, you think you're going to make the playoffs, then and you aren't convinced the player you're going to get with that pick is going to help you do that, then you move it. So that's always a possibility as well. There's also packaging picks to move up or for a future pick or whatever that might be. Don't expect the Wolves to take 4 players in this year's draft because you don't have the roster space to do it. Sure, there'll probably be a draft and stash. If I had to guess sitting here right now, a month out from the draft, the Wolves make a pick at 19. They make one of their second round picks to keep. They probably trade one for a future pick in cash or something like that. And then they would perhaps there's a draft and stash with the other one, or maybe the draft and stash comes at 19. I don't know. But I could see the Wolves using 2 of the 4 picks actively this year, trading one, and potentially stashing the 4th one. So, and by that, I mean drafting somebody who's going to play overseas like Bolmaro did in 2021 or 2020, 2021, what would have been his rookie year. So plenty of draft talk to come here on the show. We'll eventually have some guests on to talk about prospects, players the Wolves could target at number 19. And of course, the Locked On NBA mock drafts continue to happen. We already did the lottery one. There will be another couple versions of that, and then eventually some that will include everybody in the draft. So we'll get in on those as well as we get closer to the actual draft date. All right. Next, what I want to do is I want to get into the a quick playoff update. Patrick Beverley, what he's been up to on television the last few days, and then we'll get into some front office stuff. So plenty to cover here still. First, though, let's talk about our friends over at Athletic Greens. Our next partner has a product I use literally every day. I started taking AG1 several weeks ago now because I didn't have time to do much else to stay healthy. Frankly, I wanted better gut health. I wanted to have better energy. And so AG1 was the way to go. If you're asking what it is, well, I'll tell you, it's a delicious nutritional supplement. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. Really all the things. It's lifestyle friendly if you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, or really whatever your diet of choice is, you can use AG1. It also has less than 1 gram of sugar. There's no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, and still tastes good. Tons of people take some kind of multivitamin. It's important to choose one with high quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover. Cost him about $100 a day. So he created Athletic Greens after experiencing just how difficult it was to create an optimal nutrition routine all by yourself. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NBA network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, so the NBA playoffs roll on. Of course, we're in the conference finals now, and the first game on well, the first game of the conference finals round. So on Tuesday night, we got Boston, Miami. Boston led for much of this game. And by the way, now that we're down to just the two series, I think it makes sense to update these just a little bit. But if you missed it, Boston led for much of the game, was up at halftime. Then Jimmy Butler went nuts in the third quarter. And ultimately, Butler scored 41 in the game. Boston shot just 2 of 15 from the field in the third. They won the other three quarters. This had morphed into almost a blowout the other way after the third quarter. I think what they outscored them by like 21 in the third. And then Boston actually put up a bit of a fight in the fourth and got to within 11 points. They outscored him by 25 in the third quarter. But Jimmy had 41 points on just 19 shots. He was 17 of 18 at the free throw line. 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, 3 blocks. A vintage Jimmy Butler game, which he certainly can turn those in from time and more, not from time to time, more often than not. And Miami held home court after this one. Jason Tatum was pretty good for Boston, 29 points on 21 shots. Jaylen Brown had 24 on 17 shots. But Jimmy Butler's fantastic. And Timberwolves fans, I mean, Jimmy Butler at his best when healthy is still a top 10 player in the league. There's no question about it. He was when he was in Minnesota. There's a reason that he had this team in position to get a solid playoff seed. They were fifth in the West when he got hurt that February and slid all the way to eighth when he came back at the end of the season. Only were able to win one game against Houston in the playoffs. Jimmy Butler is still so good. And now he's starting to enter that back half of his prime, but he's carrying this team. And obviously Eric Spoelstra's done a fantastic job, but has them now with the 1-0 series lead, still playing at home, of course, for game 2 later this week. And then we'll get the Western Conference Series kicking off this evening on Wednesday, Dallas at Golden State at 8 p.m. on TNT. So we'll keep tabs on those series. Lots of former Timberwolves. I tweeted this. I think it was Dane Moore that tweeted out a clip of the Wolves from a few years ago, and all 5 guys are no longer on the team that were on the court. And 4 of the 5 got to at least the second round of the playoffs this year. Actually, all 5 were in the playoffs to include the play-in because Gorgui Dieng was on the Hawks. But the other 4 are all in the playoffs, and 3 of them are still playing. I mean, Tyus Jones was, of course, eliminated with Memphis. You got Andrew Wiggins and Nemanja Bjelica playing still for the Golden State Warriors, and you've got Jimmy Butler on the Heat. So 3 of the 5 are playing in the conference finals for different teams. It's just it's crazy how this thing goes. But anyway, we'll keep tabs on those guys. We'll keep tabs on both series as we move forward. And then the last thing related to this is Patrick Beverley, of course, has been on TV. He did some fill-in stuff, I think, late last week on ESPN, the Get Up morning show, and did some stuff remotely. Now he's been in studio with former teammate JJ Redick. And I don't know. Pat Bev is Pat Bev, right? Like, absolutely love him in the context of the Timberwolves. He is kind of perfect for hot take TV, frankly, because a lot of what he says is that. And obviously he's extremely intelligent and knowledgeable about the game of basketball. But some of his takes on James Harden and why he should get a supermax, him and JJ Redick talking about that was something. And then also quasi recruiting LeBron James to Minnesota. Something tells me Pat Bev will not be fined for tampering, but he was being pressed on where LeBron should play, and he wasn't really saying anything. The host of the show, who was a fill-in on this particular day, it wasn't Max Kellerman, said basically, "Hey, you're playing this really coy," and he's like, "Well, I play for a team. I can't say where I want LeBron James to play," which is 100% true. So he handled that correctly, and then he proceeded to say, "Having him in Minnesota would be great. He could mentor Anthony Edwards. We have a young core. We're tough. Blah blah blah." which is true. And remember, LeBron did say that he would go and play wherever his son was drafted, not this draft, but the following one when he is a free agent. So there you go. I mean, who knows? At this point, he could be a second round pick. He could be an undrafted addition. If that holds true, assuming the salary demands aren't crazy for 40-year-old LeBron or whatever he'll be next year, um, LeBron's still a good player. So let's talk about it. Obviously, Pat Bev's a free agent next year as well, but I thought that was really entertaining. So anyway, I don't know if he's on still the rest of this week, but so much of what he said is just Patrick Beverley being Patrick Beverley, and most of his takes were not correct. Just being entertaining, and that's what Pat Bev's all about, as Timberwolves fans know. So go check out Pat Bev on Get Up. If you missed those clips, they're all over. There's no way you missed the clips. They're all over the internet. So go check that out because Pat Bev is Pat Bev. Okay, I want to close the show by talking about Sachin Gupta and Dane Moore had a Timberwolves front office rumor. John Krasinski, Darren Wolfson, and the Twin Cities have been reporting on various front office things for the Timberwolves. Could the Timberwolves hire? They currently don't have a president of basketball operations. Will they hire somebody who then would be Sachin Gupta's boss or work with Sachin Gupta? It's all very sticky, honestly. So let's try and parse that a little bit here next, and what could potentially happen next in this offseason regarding the Timberwolves front office. So we're gonna do that next. First, though, let's talk about our friends over at Built Bar. Imagine dipping your finger into that plastic tub of birthday cake frosting, and then opening your eyes and realizing that it was only 150 calories, but it had 16 grams of protein. That's exactly what it's like to eat a birthday cake puff from Built. I just received my birthday cake puffs on, I think, Monday or maybe over the weekend. I had my first one earlier this week. I've never had anything like it before. They're absolutely fantastic. Can't promise they'll be there for long, but you can go get them today at built.com. If you haven't tried Built Puffs, I'll let you in on a secret. A chocolate covered marshmallow protein bar is what a Built Puff is. I know it sounds like it's not a thing, but it is, and it's delicious, and it is healthy. It covered in 100% real chocolate. You can make every day your birthday with Built's birthday cake puffs. Built has taken the delicious experience of biting into a fresh slice of birthday cake and robed it in 100% white chocolate and added sprinkles. With 150 calories, 16 grams of protein, and only 9 grams of sugar, this limited time flavor is an amazing option if you're looking for a healthy way to get flavor and variety in your day. All Built Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that with Built, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. Go to Built.com to get birthday cake puffs now. Built.com, promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. This episode is also brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter just orders the parts that are on their computer, choosing the only brand that their warehouse happens to carry? You have a computer with access to rockauto.com, both at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why would you spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership when you could order from Rock Auto? They're a family business. They've been serving do-it-yourselfers now for over 20 years. Their prices are reliably low for every single customer, and Rock Auto has everything you could possibly need, from brake parts to tail lamps to motor oil and even a new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, right? Locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So the Timberwolves front office situation has been interesting ever since Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry entered the picture now 13 and a half months ago or so, last April. And they've talked certainly since Gerson Rosas was dismissed last fall. Of course, all the allegations of hostile work environment and the inappropriate relationship, et cetera. After he was dismissed, there was talk about hiring a top executive to lead the team. I think the new owners, Lowry and Rodriguez, have mostly been uh, appropriate with their public comments and coy about it, but all the reporting is that they want to make a splash, right? That's their MO. You're talking about a tech billionaire and a former Major League Baseball superstar and Hall of Fame caliber player who's very involved in a variety of businesses, visible. He's a TV commentator. These guys want to make a splash, right? Um, and money's not going to be an object for them when it comes to this, right? They're not going to penny pinch when it comes to the person leading basketball ops, and nor should they. Um, it's also a little bit awkward because Sachin Gupta was given the job he was not given the job. He kept his title of executive VP of basketball operations last fall, but was given oversight over the entire department. They didn't bring anybody else in, but they also didn't promote him. And Darren Wolfson had reported on his podcast, I think last week on the Scoop podcast, maybe it was early this week, last week maybe, that Gupta had something in his contract that basically, I mean, he could stay on, but not necessarily be in charge. And there's allowances for pay raises, et cetera. And now there's some additional reporting. Dane Moore of the Dane Moore NBA podcast reported on Twitter on Tuesday morning that Sachin Gupta remains in charge of the Timberwolves front office. Sources say new ownership remains focused on hiring a, quote, top five. These are the quotes in Dane's tweet that he put in quotes. So the source must have said the actual words, top five, president of basketball operations to work with Gupta in the front office. Obviously interesting phrasing. It says work with Gupta. Do the Timberwolves, is that the route they want to go? They're probably not going to find co-presidents of basketball operations. That feels like, I mean, it is a storyline from The Office in terms of the sitcom The Office with co-managers. It doesn't generally work out if that's the goal. If you're going to hire somebody who's the president and keep Gupta at EVP, even if you give him a monetary, raise, that wouldn't probably feel great. Remember, Gupta almost went to Houston last offseason prior to the Rosas stuff to work with his former bosses and the new president of basketball operations there. Obviously, Daryl Morey's been gone now for a couple of years. That was an option for him. So Gupta could simply leave if he's not selected to lead the team. And if he's still a candidate, that was according to John Krasinski of The Athletic, saying the Timberwolves are still considering Sachin Gupta a candidate to actually earn that new title of president of basketball operations and continue leading the front office. But if you're going to bring somebody in and you want to make a splash, who are the top five execs? Well, I would say at least three, if not four of them are still playing now. And what would be the incentive for Masai Ujiri or, I mean, Pat Riley's not coming, Bob Myers isn't leaving Golden State. I mean, that's three of your five right there. And obviously Dallas's front office is well regarded as well. I mean, perhaps you could hire somebody away from Dallas. You could argue, I guess Brad Stevens. I mean, he's not leaving Boston either, right? Obviously you hear his team's not still playing, but you're not going to get Brad Stevens from Boston and you're likely not going to get Masai. I mean, he's doing a really good job in Toronto, to say the least. They were much better than people expected this year, and his teams have been perennially good. I believe he's got ownership stake in Toronto. I mean, those are probably in some order your top 4 or 5 guys. I forget how many I just listed, but that's probably about it. Who else are you going to hire? I mean, if you hire a young up and coming person, even if they're well regarded, to replace Sachin Gupta, why not just hire Gupta? Are there many guys who are second in command league wide who would be higher regarded or more highly sought after by other front offices or by other ownership groups to run their front offices? I just don't know what splash would necessarily be better. Now, we haven't seen Gupta do anything besides the Beverley extension. Sachin Gupta's been in charge since mid-September last year, right before training camp. He hasn't done much, which, by the way, I'm okay with that. This is another conversation, but to be clear, I'm not complaining about that. The choice to be inactive at the trade deadline is an active choice, right? Because the Timberwolves could have done something. There were plenty of things on the table. There were plenty of things they could have done, but they opted to stand pat. And that is not just a passive approach. That's an active choice and probably a smart one. And so, which is, of course, the opposite of what Gerson Rosas did primarily over the course of his term running the front office. So it's not like Gupta's just sat there and let the season happen to him. He's been active in trade talks. They've obviously, been involved. It'll be interesting to see what comes of the draft too, which is another really interesting deal, right? Like all the draft prep is happening now. The draft is effectively right after the finals. So you're not going to hire anybody away from a team that's currently playing, more likely than not. Certainly not one of the big names, not one of the in chart, not a Stevens or anybody like that, not Pat Riley, not Bob Myers. You're not hiring those guys anyway. So is it somebody like from a front office of a team, like a Ujiri who's no longer playing? But again, time of year is tough. These names are tough. Like, are you really going to lure somebody to Minnesota? Yes, they have a promising roster, but they're not the only team with a promising roster. And the D'Angelo Russell conversation and that decision looms. All that to say, I appreciate that the Timberwolves want to be in those conversations. This is actually a really healthy departure from what we've seen in the past, which is, who could we get? They're like, who wants to come here? But Laurie and Rodriguez know that their names and the culture they're building and the success of this young roster last year, and Chris Finch, hopefully as a head coach, is attractive to most front offices, or most front office candidates. The Timberwolves taking the approach of we can hire the best and let's start there and work our way back is refreshing. And if it, sitting here right now, unless it's one of the aforementioned guys who have already said is not going to come to Minnesota, not because it's Minnesota, but because why would they leave their current situation unless the Wolves like double their salary or something crazy, which is unlikely to happen. Then Gupta's a fantastic option to stay on. If we're given everything we know about him, he's done a good job and he has the credentials to continue to succeed. So this is going to be super interesting to follow. And as long as there's still reporting out there from, Krasinski and Wolfson and Dane Moore, that the Timberwolves are looking at somebody additional to lead the front office, then we have to consider that it's a real possibility. It would be weird for it to happen too long after the draft. It wouldn't be unheard of. But then, of course, after the draft is free agency almost immediately. It'd be weird for it to happen after most of the offseason movements are done. But we'll see. And then, of course, there's a Chris Finch angle, too. Most front offices are going to want to bring in their guy. Technically, Finch wasn't actually Gupta's guy. I mean, Gupta was in the front office, but Gupta wasn't the one selecting and hiring Finch himself. They obviously get along great, and they want to work with each other. But it was a little bit strange in that the Wolves have somebody new-ish leading their front office, and he inherited a head coach, and they're super happy together. They want to work together. But what about the new guy they hired to work with Gupta or above Gupta? Is that going to be the same sentiment? We don't know. Chris Finch obviously had a fantastic season, and I'd be shocked if somebody came in and removed him immediately. But, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen next. So we'll obviously keep a pulse on the situation. The rest of this week on the show, I do want to do the Karl-Anthony Towns season review. That's the only one we haven't done. We'll likely do that Thursday, pending any additional news, obviously, and then we'll close out the week. Of course, Monday through Friday, still here throughout the offseason, at least through the draft and through free agency, really. So be sure you're following and subscribe to the show. Thank you to those of you that do make Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, the show's available everywhere, including YouTube. We're at like 9 months now on YouTube, so go subscribe on YouTube. Comment, like the episode. Definitely appreciate that. You can also follow on any of the audio platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Odyssey. You can follow on Twitter at Locked On T-Wolves and also at Beecken with 2 B's, 2 E's, CKEN. That's all we have for today. Thanks again for listening to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. As long as you're making us your first listen, don't forget to make your second listen the Locked On NBA show. From the first jump ball, the play-in tournament, to the last possession of the finals, Locked On experts take you deep inside the playoffs with insight and analysis affecting all 30 teams. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.